I'm thinking about receiver or perceiver. I have something to say. Can you actually hear it the way I actually want you to? And are you hearing it beyond what you want to hear?
So I've learned that boldness, maybe it's taking the risk, but really evaluating some of the consequences of that risk.
I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for stopping by. At the Bold Business Podcast, we are normalizing important conversations. Yes, there are tips. Yes, there are ways to solve problems. More importantly, are going to be what do you need for yourself to be able to solve those problems and make the most of the education, the training, and the programs that you are already using. This is a supplement to that. It can sit on top of it, fuel your soul, fuel your mind, and most importantly, regardless of where you're at on your journey. Maybe you're starting out. Maybe you're ready to scale. Maybe you're going through reinvention. The conversations we are having will help you at each of those stages. So hang around, see what's going on, and I look forward to seeing you engaging with our videos.
You are listening to the Bold Business Podcast, where you will hear firsthand experiences about what it really takes to ensure market relevance and your company's future.
3 takeaways to listen for and where we're going to go deep in this conversation are that if we knew the rules, we'd probably use them. So when you're showing up in a situation, are you choosing the rules or do you have agreed upon rules with which to work and engage? The second thing is going to be about, what happens when you're in a situation where there are no rules or no rules have been made yet or the rules need to be rewritten? We came up with those together in this conversation. And the third thing is that it's important to take care of yourself, to do the deep work that it takes to communicate well in a connected and open way with those around us. And who am I talking to about this? I'm talking with Steve Utech, and he has a mission to unlock the mysteries of complex human interactions. So personal relationships and business relationships can be more meaningful, fulfilling, and satisfying. And he founded illumyx to help us do just that. He has an interesting sense of humor. He has ADHD. He is an experienced leader with a lot of success and a lot of failure. And he really thrives in helping and bringing the insights he has in culture optimization, in organizational effectiveness to you in your life and your role, to you in your life and your company, and to you outside of that as well. I'm really excited for you to meet Steve. How much family therapy did you get? And it was by proxy. Now I'm curious.
By proxy? Oh,
Yeah, because of your dad and his awesome profession.
yeah. So if I got in trouble, like I got grounded one time and it was the best experience ever. It was amazing. If I'm a kid, I would choose being grounded any day over what I got. I didn't get beat. Instead, I just literally sit on the couch and talk about my feelings.
Oh,
So
so you've been talking about this realness of whatever
yeah,
is for a long time.
I would wait it out. I would spend hours and I couldn't leave until I was able to understand the impact I had on other people.
And how old were you at this grounding?
I was in high school when I first got grounded, and I
Okay.
think it was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
my folks were tired and they were like, "We don't have time for these emotional talks, so we're just gonna ground you." So I was probably 16. But everything before that and after that was, "You're sitting on the couch and you're gonna talk through this with us, Steve."
I was thinking about my first grounding. I was in the 4th grade. It was my one and only. And what I did was, okay, I'm grounded. So my dad grounded me. I did a horrible thing and I got rid of grub worms, which got me an A on a project, got my whole class A's on projects because our yard was free of grub worms, but we didn't put the grass back when we were done. I got grounded for leaving grass in a pile because we peeled it all up and we got all these things for a school project. So I got grounded. And my dad, I heard him. I heard him as he came around the corner in his car, screaming and hollering about his lawn. Okay, he's one of those guys. We got home, he goes, "You're just grounded." And he didn't talk to me for a while. So I said, "Okay." And and there was no end time. So I sat next to him the whole day, the rest of the day. And most of the Saturday, I was just like glued to his hip because I'm like, what else am I going to do? I can't watch TV, can't play with my friends. I guess I'll hang out with my dad. And he goes, "Okay, you're ungrounded."
Get out of here. I need some
Get out
space.
of here. Yeah.
I like how you introduced that, where you really framed it as this, you picked all the grubs out of the yard, when really you just destroyed the lawn.
I literally thought I was helping. I invited my whole class over, and then all the neighborhood kids came over. We had a big yard. And I did. From my dad's perspective, I destroyed the yard. And isn't that interesting about perspective though? What you're doing, what your intention is versus what it's perceived to be. I think that's a huge thing. Is it a struggle or is it just a thing that we're less aware of than we need to be?
Yeah.
I don't know. This is where I'm like, Steve, I think this is an interesting concept because I know you work with personality and technology to come up with some of these things and to help make us better at
That's the hope, usually.
that. I'm trying to,
Yeah, you're reaching for something. Yeah. And
yeah,
I should probably pick that up.
please.
Oh, yeah.
We've had such great conversations so far. We haven't practiced the handoff.
No, but I think there's definitely some truth to that. So back in the childhood rift, I had this issue with wanting to fit in as a kid. So I started drinking alcohol heavily because I found it greased the skids, and I went from the socially awkward to feeling loose and footloose and fancy free when I would interact with people. And I think my folks saw this on the outside. And then when they did catch me, then it was more about trying to uncover like why I was doing some of this stuff. And really at the root of it was just like, I didn't know how to make friends. And they started pushing me and challenging me around, these friends you have now, are they really your friends? And they're like, what happens if you stop drinking? And I'm like, I'll still hang out with them. So, lo and behold, I stopped drinking and became instantly unpopular.
No
So
way.
yeah, it's 100%. So it was a cool one of many life lessons I learned from them, where they didn't spoon feed me the answer, but they kind of let me figure it out along the way.
You had really good parents. Or how about this? I say had. You had really good parents as a kid. I'm sure your parents were still really good. I want to make very clear. I'm like, looking back, that's cool. So they were in a place where, of course, everybody has their own things, but they were in a place to be able to support you in your growth while they were still growing themselves. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but as a parent today, I know that's some of the hardest things. And I'm glad I became a parent later. I have very young parents and I am the oldest parent of somebody right for my kids' age. And I can tell you, I know I'm a better parent because I have had more time to experience and feel and who am I than being tossed into it before not really knowing and then not necessarily having any support along the way.
Yeah. Parenting's the challenge.
I know I try and live a real intentional life. And I know that the clients I work with tend to also want to be intentional. And it does, like what you were saying. Oh, look what I learned. It's not the drinking didn't help. The fact is, I didn't know how to do something. I think that's really what every day is like.
Maybe the gifts they gave me as parents was have the power of insight, and the more awareness you have, the better decisions hopefully you can make if you can go deeper and understand the root of why things are happening. That's probably why I'm doing the work I'm doing right now.
What do you do right now?
Currently, I've run a people analytics company, and that's a fancy way of saying like we assess people, teams, and organizations, largely to give organizations insights to make better decisions. So what that might be is like a company, let's say they go from 100 to 500 employees over a couple year period, and it can be very chaotic and disruptive. But what's worked at 100 employees doesn't necessarily going to work at 500. So they got to figure out new ways of operating, organizing. And it can be challenging to know, hey, what do we actually need to focus in on? So giving them some insights and some clarity and guidance on where to start can be pretty powerful. Because if people knew what to do, they would usually do it.
I find that to be true.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes. If I knew the rules.
If I knew how to make friends without drinking as a kid, I probably would have done that.
Yeah, exactly. I know. If I knew that getting my whole class extra credit actually meant destroying the yard, I probably would have done it differently.
Totally.
And I said if we knew the rules, but it's almost just ways to engage.
So say more. What do you mean ways to engage?
If I have self-awareness and I know about me, it's not only who I am and what I'm about, but it's also what is my situation today? How am I today? Am I 100% of what I think? Am I dragging along other things that happened to me before I got to work? Am I dealing with stuff that doesn't easily end that carries stress? And usually that's around a child or a parent and the relationship of being the caregiver somewhere in there, right? So those types of things. So that's a kind of awareness. But then there's the engagement piece of, regardless of what I'm bringing today, I want to show up and I want to talk to you, Steve, and I want to make it meaningful, and I want to have the least amount of redos today in the moment, but also the redos of asking more questions or causing delays of whatever project we're working on together that has some other deadline.
I stayed at a hippie commune in Oregon once I was trying to save money
Yeah.
on a work
Hey,
trip.
I'm all about that. You never know what you're going to get in hostile hippie communes. Okay.
Yeah, this place was disgusting. I think I tented. I was in a tent. I went in the shower and I remember coming out and my feet were black because it was,
Ooh, ooh, okay.
I was working with a mentor of mine and he talked about this idea of openness. And he had two philosophies, like openness starts with self-awareness, but then also disclosing those awarenesses as a way to build trust. So I don't know why your comment triggered that thought around the recipe.
For openness. How do you practice openness today?
Having an awareness and then usually sharing it with somebody.
And do you do that without any filters?
I used to be filterless, and now I'm trying to maybe have a few more filters on like
Yeah.
what's appropriate to share and what's not.
Wait, what? That's a thing?
Or maybe I think I have the awareness, but I'm just like at the surface. So then I spit it out too quickly. Oh, I got to tell this person like why I'm upset or why I'm acting like a butthead today. And maybe it's too early or they're not ready to receive it, that kind of stuff.
Do they even care?
Yeah.
Are they
Do they
wasting
care?
words, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just let it lie?
Say I talk to think, and so when you say that, like you show up with this you talk too soon, and I'm like, I talk to like process sometimes. And so I've actually started to preface. I have that moment of, oh hey, I got to talk to think a minute. So there's no pressure for the first little bit of somebody trying to go, where is she in the universe? And am I even close? And how do I participate in this? Gives people grace to go, okay, this is just a thing. We're not there yet.
That's cool. I think to talk from the opposite. And my defaults, like when I'm not at my best, is emotional constipation. So usually people are just like, "What the hell's going on? You look like you're gonna crap your pants, but something stuck." I'm like, "No, I'm just thinking."
Oh, so you think expressively.
Yes, yeah, I think loudly.
Can you hold your cards close? Are you a good poker player?
Not good.
I'm not a good poker player because it's all on my face all the time.
Yeah, I think people have told me like, "Why would you be honest about that?" Like, there's been a couple times, like you should have just. I tried to actually stole energy drink the other day, just the
Okay.
other day,
Sure.
and
Uh-huh.
I went in. I was tired. I grabbed it. I was like, and then I just left, and I got to work, and I was like, holy shit, like, I don't think I paid for this. And then I checked my bank statement. I'm like, yeah, no transactions. I just left with the energy drink. And then I just felt massively guilty. So I went back to the store the next day and I said, hey, I'm going to buy 2 energy drinks and just keep this one. And I'm just going to take one because I stole from you guys yesterday. And the lady was just so confused. I started trying to work it through with her for 5 minutes. And then she's just like, how about I discharge you for this? I'm like, okay, fine. She wouldn't let me correct my mistake.
By the way, good for you for feeling guilty. And actually, even better for you that you realized the same day. It sounds like something was really going on between those ears and the connection between your head and your heart.
Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below. I thrive on your feedback and engagement. You're listening to the Bold Business Podcast, and I'm your host, Jess Dewell. This is your program for strategizing long-term success while diving deep into what the right work is for your business right now.
You're listening to the Bold Business Podcast, hosted by Jess Dewell, a nationally recognized strategic growth consultant. She works with business owners and executives to integrate just 2 elements that guide business through the ups and downs of growth. Number 1, know what work is necessary. Number 2, do all the work possible. Schedule a complimentary consultation to find out more at reddirection.com.
if we have this recipe for openness and we meet somebody and we have to write the rules as we go, is there a first step?
For writing the rules?
Yeah, for writing the rules in the moment.
That's a really good question. I don't Can we unpack that together maybe?
Let's do it.
So, do you have a scenario that we could break down?
There was this thing that happened and you were like, "Ooh, I want to make it right." But the people might not have been the same in the making it right, or the rules of how we engage with customers might not have had a scenario for that had been trained on, and so you didn't give up. I guess maybe that's the first thing. Don't give up.
I eventually gave up.
But you didn't start that way. You tried,
True.
right?
I
Right?
tried. I made the attempt.
Yeah, you made the attempt. So I got a situation. Okay, so what are the rules going to be here? Don't give up. Have courage and take action of some kind. Show up and say, "Hey, can you fix this with me?" And you tried to fix it. So I guess the first step is, "Oh, I have something to do that kind of is weird and different and unusual." And then you stick with it. "No, I really want to make this right." Or I really want to make this, I'll call it Winfinity, supportive for everybody, right? So there's 2 steps. What else could we do?
I think you have to agree that there's a problem,
Oh.
and I don't want to be a thief, so I have to rectify this. And the lady didn't care that I stole. And then also she was older, so I think she got confused because I was buying other stuff. And then she got concerned that she was overcharging me. So then she just said, "Hey, go along, young buckaroo. Have a good day."
So she had conflicting rules. You were trying to right a wrong. You were trying to come here, couldn't agree that there was a problem to fix. And I'm guessing I have experienced this with people before. And I've been on the other side of that, where I've been accused in past positions when I was working retail once upon a time of double charging somebody, or, right, charging them too much and they leave and they come back and they're like, "I didn't have this thing. So then what?" So there's the thing of the repercussion of overcharging somebody is now going to come out of my pocket as the person who did that. So can I even help you make it right when it's the inventory is now not going to match up in this moment?
Because there could be some, yeah, past experiences around overcharging. And then, because that was her concern. I don't want to overcharge you. I'm like, "You're not overcharging me."
The rules that might have to be broken might be the next one. So can we agree there's a problem, and are the rules that we're facing breakable?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there another step?
From my vantage point, if you can agree on a problem, are the rules breakable? And then can we arrive at a new rule? What's the new solution?
And maybe a new rule.
And maybe a new rule.
And you come from a therapy background, and I have had therapy, but I am not a therapist. And you by proxy from your family, which I think is really great. So one of the things that I think in talking about all of this is being okay with the fact that we can't agree that there's a problem. I actually think is a theme that I see over and over again, because all of us, and now I'm talking the real world, all of us at some point in time are going to bring the traits forward we think will help us in this situation. Not necessarily the strengths that we are strong in, not necessarily who we actually are. And I'm curious your take on some of that, in the sense of just if we're talking about when do we have to rewrite the rules, can we? Are we doing it from a place of our own efficacy, steadfastness, right self? Or are we doing it from this perceived awareness of, I want to be liked, I want to right a wrong? In my case, I want to help everybody get a good grade.
Maybe I'm going to get at this in a backwards way.
Okay, I love this.
I had a leader who had an employee recently that was just sharing stuff with me, not to solve it, but just to process stuff through.
Yeah.
A friend, actually.
Uh-huh.
And they had an employee that just started dating somebody.
At the company also?
Not at the
Okay.
company, outside of the company, not related to
Okay.
the company.
Oh, okay.
And then this person got arrested. I don't know the specifics, but I think it might have been some sort of assault. And this woman felt extremely embarrassed and mortified, and had to take up mental health days. And she was like, "What the hell is going to happen to me? This is just embarrassing." And my friend was just like, "How is this a problem? I don't see the problem. I don't see how your life is ending. Can you help me understand this?" and the person couldn't respond. And they're like, "Huh, I guess I don't know this person for very long." And it really jumbled with their head. Like, they didn't even know how to process it. So that might be in a different tangent. I'm not sure if I'm tracking with what you're putting down, but
I don't know if it is or not. All I know is I love the exploration that we're having because
Yeah.
what I heard was, oh, this person decided what the rules were. This person decided
Yeah.
there was a problem, that the person is the only one who saw the problem. Stop
So
at number one.
I did give some feedback. I'm like, I can see where you're coming from, where might not see that as being a problem, but has this person had a lot of relationships? Is this fear of loneliness? Maybe she's afraid of being alone, and she finally got a boyfriend, and all of a sudden now he's a criminal, and holy crap. So I'm like, maybe go back and slow down and try to figure out like what the problem is for her.
So the employee was feeling embarrassed, like this was going to somehow impact their performance or perception of performance at work. And the employer was like, I don't know what this has to do with anything because it's not you.
Yeah, you didn't commit a crime, so how is this a problem?
So glad to know I'm in good standing with you, but it does not make my heart feel better.
Don't have any feelings about this like, at all.
Not necessary. Let them all go.
But I think it's really important to gain agreement. Be curious and understand. It might not be a problem in your mind, but like, why is it a problem? So I would really appreciate it if this gas station attendant go, "Hey, sir, why is this a big deal for you that you want to make this right that you stole an energy drink?"
And I think it's both, right? You knew why it was a big deal to you, but nobody asked you.
Yeah.
So got stuck. And in the other example that you gave, looking at a pair of binoculars over here and a pair of binoculars over here, and they were crossing paths, you just didn't see the same outcome at all.
Yeah.
We're talking about being open and we're talking about self awareness. So now I want to know, is there a place or a thing that you have ever done that was so out of your comfort zone, you almost got stuck and made it a problem that you didn't do it? Or that was almost too, I don't know how I'm gonna have enough courage to try this, or this goes against everything I ever thought I could or would be?
I was married at one point in my life, no longer married right now. And I made a mistake. I cheated on my spouse like 6 months into the relationship. I had too much to drink at a conference and just felt awful about it and just carried this guilt. And I was like, how can I ever say anything and keep my and have any semblance of trust going forward? So I carried that for eight years maybe. And then I finally told her. I just felt, man, I owe it to this woman to be honest with her because I felt like it was holding things back for me. I just noticed that I was not showing up in the relationship the way I wanted to. And in my head, I was like, I got to get rid of this guilt. And I was very much thinking of myself. And in my head, I was like, I'm also thinking of her. But I was more, I think, wanting to just rid myself of this burden. So I remember telling her and just devastating news. And it took a ton of courage just to even get up to that point. And I'm still not 100% sure if that was the right thing to do because I don't think our marriage never recovered from it. And it was probably the right thing to do, but probably a very painful thing to disclose.
There is always more than one solution, and sometimes all the solutions suck. I mean, honestly and truly. And so, what I hear you saying is, even outside of any personal stuff that you were saying and what you have come to recognize within yourself, there's that element of all the outcomes of this could suck. And I'm actually afraid of that. Or I have no choice but to choose something. So, can I choose the one that sucks least? And I know we face that on many levels as individuals, but we face that in companies, we face that in our relationships, we face that, I don't know. There are so many places I can think of for that. So that's very interesting where you had to, and so you started out and some of the words that you were saying were about to try something new and you had said, let's see. I want to make sure I get the correct me here and because you had said I think I needed to just release myself of the guilt. And that still took courage to do, courage to speak up, courage to not keep secrets, and courage to recognize and share that this guilt the guilt itself was holding you back. That is courageous.
I like to think that. I also felt I felt like a coward. Like I felt like I'd been living a lie. And I definitely putting myself in her shoes and just trying to understand, like replaying all those previous years together and going and having her go, was this real or was it a lie? And for me, I'm like, oh man, that messes with somebody, I think.
When people say they have a midlife crisis, is that it? I haven't been showing up as who I really am, so is everything a lie? Whether it's internal or whether it's external. So I'm at, because I actually think there are points of our life when we have that. I know for me, there was one in high school. I know for me, there was one, I don't know, I think if I might be in one right now of, am I really who I want to be? And I think I really am. And all right. So and some of what, there's a word for that. What's the word for that? When we have to think about who we are, there's a word for that.
When do we have to what? Think,
All of these things, are we really ourselves? Is everything we've had a lie? Are we truly on the path of who we're becoming? There's a word for that.
oh, like authenticity, congruency,
No, older than
a
that.
lot. Oh,
Older
older
than
than that.
older than buzzword, but I'm gonna call those that feels like buzzwords.
Okay.
So the answer is yes, so I'm going older than that. I'm like, oh, existential. No, I said it
Oh,
wrong.
existential. Okay. Yeah.
Existential.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Okay. So, does that word fit here?
Sure.
And do you understand now why I said older than that?
Yeah. Like an existential crisis. That thing,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, those things are important, and I think they're part of that. They're who are we and who do we want to be? And I don't know how much, and I'm glad we talk about that now. It is, and if we are there, as hard as it is, if we feel like we're living untruthfully, living lies, it is up to us to figure out how to make it right. And it is unfortunate when there's fallout from that.
But part of life.
It is part of life. Like I can tell you, and one of the things that has happened to me, and I'm going to use a business example to tie the things together, is that I wanted another success so badly. I overlooked a lot of red flags in a partner that I chose for business. And in fact, I did it 3 times in a row. So here we go. So going back to the issue with the relationship, I'm like, okay, so I can, yeah. So I wanted this so bad and I wanted it to work. I remember picking a partner because we worked together. We thought we had the same values. And this person, we did all of this work. We had clients. We had work that had been being done. And one day she decided she was mad at me and she took all the money out of the bank accounts and disappeared.
Holy crap. That's pretty extreme.
So I had to figure out, well, what am I going to do about this? So I had to be like, people, I have no money to do this work. And by the way, they were the craftsperson. I was the salesperson. So I can't even do the work we promised to do for you. So I was able to work it all out and I found people to refer to. I found people that split the difference of the cost with me. So I paid for some of that work to be done out of my own pocket and they paid for some so that they could keep their projects going and everybody got taken care of. But I will tell you, that was the biggest thing of how could I have done that? How could I have not seen? And it was only upon that reflection of I wanted it so bad, I overlooked everything else. I don't know what the emotion is, but it was as strong as guilt could be. Can't you know that? Can I do it again? Am I really that cool? I don't even know what the thing would be, but it was there. And so I hear what you're saying and I recognize that it'll show up in a lot of different ways and it was still very personal. That was the hardest thing that I ever had to recover from, I think, at least in my business world.
Yeah. It's challenging. Business partner
Right.
challenges are difficult.
And I didn't know this person for very long. And and it doesn't matter about the contracts, it doesn't matter about everything else. But I was like, holy cow, so now what? And do you find that? So here's an interesting shift. So we're talking about this and how we show up and the things that are showing up for us, which some are part of our personality and some are part of our upbringing and some are part of the challenges that we have uniquely faced. But so how do we take this concept of our strengths and be able to go, cool, even though, and I say that cheekily, right? And cool, all this is going on, even though it's very uncool, because I have this thing I could bring. And I actually did this big 5 with you, and I still haven't decided some things. By the way, I'm indecisive here, but it was really cool to see, oh, when I am under stress, I can see myself doing these things now that we had that conversation and how that could get in my way. And ooh, I really want this to work no matter what. And I'm going to power through no matter. I will do that. I'll do that if I care deeply about the brand of toothpaste we're going to buy or the brand of toilet paper we're going to buy, as much as I see this. If you're on board, I'm going to believe 100% in you. Let's go. Whether that's good or not.
Well, I think that's the cool thing about doing personality assessments or trait assessments is you can pretty clearly see maybe some of your tendencies
Yeah.
and how maybe strengths can go overboard. With your business partner example, I've made some like maybe quick decisions that I should have maybe deliberated on for longer. But I always find like when those things happen, it's an opportunity usually to own your mistakes and move forward. And I think the beauty of what the story you shared is the dilemma you're in that feels like blues, like I can't do the work, but I have to service the customer. Holy crap. And they already paid. What about that's just an impossible dilemma.
So I'm glad I was able to bring something like that to them. Yeah. Yeah. All the choices were bad.
Yeah. But without that awareness and the humility to,
Yeah.
okay, I need some help here. Can you work with me?
Yeah. And I'm glad I was able to help everybody. I'll be real with you. And I actually just started talking about that really for the first time recently. So there's probably some residual shame. Nope. I didn't get to be as successful as I wanted to be again. So and that's more of that. I don't know. I have a very strong critic for a lot of different reasons, but it comes naturally too. There's a good healthy dose of just Jess in that. Yeah. But it's interesting because if we're not, so like in the examples that have been shared all the way through from our childhood ones to now, what I find interesting is that we're willing to look at them. And then if you take that in congruence with something like the Big Five or a personality test of how we can show up and what can we do for our own accountability, for our own moral compass that we have chosen for ourselves, that's pretty cool.
I like strengths finders because it's cool. It's, hey, what are you good at? But I also like the assessments that look at you like the dark side.
Shadow work.
The shadow work,
The
yeah.
shadow work. Yeah.
Like when
Yeah.
strengths become
The flip
weaknesses.
side.
The flip side, yeah.
The flip side. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and there's just like cool work to do there, I think.
Where's a place that you've done that work?
I remember I worked with a government client once, like early on, like my first year, I was like ambitious and completely overly optimistic and naive about my ability to generate revenue. And so I remember we finally got this government contract. Like I was scraping by, like barely able to make payroll for like a year. I think my salary was like 14,000 annually. Like I was like poverty level. Blew through my bank account. Like yeah, ramen noodles. It was fun. But so when we got this first government contract, I was like so excited and had this overwhelming desire to like prove myself. So I remember like we ended up doing all these focus groups across this county organization, and we uncovered all of these issues. And I worked with this OD team, and we literally plastered the room, illustrating these systemic dynamics with these massive visualizations around this big, not even a conference room, almost like an auditorium. And I was so proud of myself and the work me and like the team did around, hey, they were curious about like what was happening in their organization and why people were upset and engagement was low. And we just spelled it out in gory detail for them.
We went from honest truth to brutal truth.
Yeah, brutal truth. I thought they were gonna love it because I like when we first met with them, the leadership teams, they asked for it. They're like, we just want insight as to what's happening.
Yep.
So I'm like, I delivered tenfold. They did not like the presentation at all. And to be honest, it was the beginning of the end of that contract because I think out of my own desire to prove my worth, I overwhelmed the living shit out of these poor leaders. And I gave them too much to focus on. And it was more about me trying to prove myself rather than going, what can they actually handle? Let's start small. So after that project, one of my colleagues said, Steve, chewable chunks from now on, like chewable chunks. Just give them a little bit.
I
And
like,
then once they've digested that, give them a little bit more food.
yeah.
That was a fun early project that we didn't technically get fired, but they slowly just stopped talking to us.
That was a on-the-job learning
Yes, yes.
at its best.
Yeah, and what that especially in our early days, one of the feedback pieces we got was like, "You guys over deliver," and like the people that liked it, they felt like they were taking advantage of us, and then some people just didn't like it because they felt like we were just overachieving people pleasers.
I'm your host, Jess Dewell, and we're getting down to business on the Bold Business Podcast. This is where we're tackling the challenges that matter most to you with actionable and achievable advice to get real results that lead to your success. Don't forget, press that bell icon so you never miss a program. And it's time to subscribe as well.
Focused on growth? Listen to more programs like this which support the challenges and opportunities you are working with right now. Come on. Search Bold Business Podcast for the key terms at reddirection.com or your preferred podcast listening app.
I'm thinking about receiver or perceiver. I have something to say. Can you actually hear it the way I actually want you to? And are you hearing it the way that beyond what you want to hear and the way that I want to? So there's that was coming out of this, and the incongruence of that over deliver. It's interesting that there were a lot of responses to that.
And what I realize now was like, leaders don't really, they want to know what to improve, but they don't want to get pummeled over the head as to why they suck. Like,
By the way, I think that goes to everybody. This work is deep, and it takes more time than whatever time blocking or meetings that people tend to set, right? So there tends to be this loss of momentum, and that must be a lot on you as a provider, as a consultant, as an advisor, to be able to hold that space and hold all of the things and keep momentum going. How do you take care of yourself?
I think how I was operating back then was I was not taking care of myself. I was a bit of a workaholic, and it's still a work in progress, but I've noticed that as I've learned to accept and appreciate myself more, I am much more kind and gentle with clients.
Okay. Oh, I was gonna say with
Yeah.
yourself, and I was gonna get, oh,
With that too.
oh, that's so great. Yeah, okay.
But I remember I used to do some like training workshops like earlier on in my career. And I bumped into a guy like probably 8 years later. And I just had a coffee with him. And he's like, Steve, like you just seem very different. And I'm like, really? How? And he's like, when you're in that training group with me, like you're an asshole. And I was like, are you serious? I'm like, I thought you liked me. And I'm like, you were likable, but you're just a dick. And I was like, what?
So callous and cold meaning or aloof or distant? Okay.
Maybe all the above, or just like delivering feedback and not really caring how it landed. More interested in my own powerful insights I can generate rather than not taking into account the receiver and treating them with respect and like a real person. That I painted my picture of myself as a real piece of work.
Only because you were.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
this is the whole context of this is how am I using what I've learned from all of these assessments to continue my own
Yeah.
curiosity. By the way, and I'll just come out to say it, I don't like being the dick in the room, but I will when I have to be.
There's a place for it sometimes.
So I just keep hearing over and over again, I know I was doing something for the best interest. I didn't know they were receiving it that way, but I also didn't take the time to care. And so anybody who's working with a peer or managing up or managing down or setting the stage or bringing people together across all kinds of strategy, maybe across multiple locations, maybe across thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. That is something that is a real thing that when we are pressed for time, we forget. So I appreciate you talking about it because I don't think it's coming across that way at all because you've done all of the thinking and are sharing in a way that other people can go, maybe I need to take more time with that in front. Maybe I need to take more time because it's deep work. It's important work, and it will prevent goals that should be doable on paper because we have the right money, we have the right people, we have the right skills, we have the right timelines, we have the right suppliers. They will be missed because of this stuff.
Like something we like to do is uh, really sit down and go, okay, how do we present this in a way that people can hear it? And I always like to put context in. Sometimes I'm like, am I walking the line of rationalizing crappy behavior? And maybe I might go too far by like overly normalizing things, but I also like I want people to be able to accept things and understand. And there's usually a environmental or contextual reason for why people behave badly. Or I remember I had one client, they had at one point their biggest customer was Starbucks, and they would produce, I don't know, I forget what they would produce products for them, maybe in terms of packaging. And overnight, Starbucks got a new procurement manager and their business completely went away. It was like 30-40 million dollars just gone.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was traumatic for this organization. They had to downsize. The CEO went from this like guy that everyone loved to just like an asshole dictator, and never wanted to make that mistake again. So he would just yell at people, and went from hands off to micromanaging, and did this for years. And so it's like this fine line of this man was obviously trying to look up for the best interests of the company, and really felt like he was carrying this guilt that he let everybody down. And people felt that too, but also like how he was going about it was just brutal. So needing to have him hear us, but also employees who, to be honest, experienced abuse from the guy, and being able to relate to both groups, it's a very sensitive line to walk, or fine line to walk.
Is it condoning bad behavior? Maybe. But hey, we can only have one battle at a time. Truly, honestly, and truly, the way we grow a garden is that we decide what's the weed and what's not. And we keep getting rid of the things we've decided are weeds. And then same in a business, right? What has been working and what is not. And all of those things, if we're not getting to our goals, let's look a little deeper and see, keep peeling back the onion to see what else could grow nicely with this in our garden, or to help us scale our company so the people are actually having this. And it matters. It matters what we do as leaders.
Yeah, quick story. Actually, I worked under my dad for a little bit. He was a org development consultant, family therapist. That's how I got in the field, actually. And he told me this one story early in his career. He's working with this big food distributor. I think it was like 6,000 employees, $1 billion+ in revenue. And the CEO was just this micromanager. He would, so 6,000 employees, he would approve everyone's raises manually. Yes. Isn't that incredible? I don't know when the guy slept. Um, but he was just in the weeds in a lot of things. And my dad knew his story. And so he started uncovering like he had a history of alcoholism in his family. And he described like, hey, growing up, if I wasn't in control of every detail, like it could be chaos in my house. My dad could just wreak havoc in minutes if we weren't aware of his mood and if I wasn't in charge of things. So they did these video calls every month to employees. So he's like, I need you to talk to your employees about this and give them some context for your behavior, because they can look at you as this micromanaging, controlling asshole. But if they understand why and where this behavior is coming from, it allows them to support you in a different way and not rebel against you, but to maybe help you out so you don't have to do that behavior anymore. And his words to my father were, I will do it, but if this doesn't work, you will never work in this town again.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And it worked out well.
And that response, look at that, was, I'm really afraid. I'm willing to try something. I recognize where I might be too controlling. So if I'm going to go out on a limb, you're there with me. And by the way, I'm all about linking arms and holding hands and going together. So that's good that he did that in his own way with your dad. It's a crazy, awesome story.
It is. And he always had a really cool way of connecting with people. I would say he's great at loving other humans, to the point where he's allowed to get away with a lot of pretty direct feedback.
And that's good that he was that kind of person that whatever the feedback needed to be in that moment, that was able to be received.
Early in my career, I probably was just excited. Oh, I love the insights you provide, Dad. Or his name is
Yeah.
Ken, since retired. And I just want to be the insight guy. And then I missed the critical part of the story of having a relationship and actually caring about people and being curious about their story.
But yeah, now I need to know about your morning routine.
My morning routine,
Yes.
it used to be very running focused. I got into this endurance running thing, like ultra marathons, so that I would just wake up early and just run. And now I've since from like living on my own to I moved in with my girlfriend and our kids. And I hate to say this, cuddling with another human being is so amazing.
It's amazing.
It is. It's,
It's amazing.
and my morning routine is completely gone. It is unpredictable. And if the cuddling is exceptionally warm, especially in a cold Wisconsin winter day, I'm likely going to be maybe sleeping in a little bit longer.
That's amazing. Yeah, I get that. I know my morning routine changes too. But I will tell you, I love elbow to elbow, back to back. I love curled up with right now in the mornings. I get up and I'll make a cup of tea and I sit with I call him my pup. He's 6 years old. So he's really not a pup, but he's still my pup. And he'll sit in my lap while I read and have a cup of tea because that he's not ready to wake up yet. And I'm like, cool, I can carve out 15 or 20 minutes to just sit with you in my lap. Why not? Because there's something to be said for that. Is that your love language? Is touch your love language?
It's up there for sure. Yeah, I think it is definitely.
Number one for me. I was like, oh, I know this. What is this? Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to ask you a question about it's bold. What makes it bold to take time to prepare your communications so you're really able to have people understand the message you have for them?
Oh, that's such a good question. Because I used to think it was just, okay, there's this one values-based assessment I participated in. I don't even think they use it anymore. But one of the things I was picked for myself was bold. And if my nickname growing up was shock and awe, because I would just say,
Okay. A facet of bold. I love it.
yeah, because I would just like in social situations, just drop nuggets of very uncomfortable insight or wisdom that people would it was like my way of like testing. Are you going to accept me or reject me? And I'm going to find out right away by sharing something mildly inappropriate. And people either loved me or hated me for that. So your question about boldness. So I've learned that boldness, maybe it's taking the risk, but really evaluating some of the consequences of that risk. So someone gave me a nickname too, or not a nickname. They described me and they said, "Steve, you make it safe to be dangerous." Which I was like, "What the hell does that mean?" And like you make it okay to take risks. And I think bold, like actually one of our values at the company is venture boldly. And it's about maybe stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Every single time I have a conversation, I take away something that I want to share with 25 people. I know when you're listening to this podcast, you're also listening for that and will have something that you want to share. In the comments, I would like for you to engage with us. What is that thing that you want to tell 25 people from this program? Here's why it's important. It's important because, yeah, there are going to be how-tos. Yes, there are going to be steps. Yes, you're going to be like, oh, I wish I wrote that down. I wish I wasn't doing this and I could actually take action on that right now. But guess what? You're not. So engage right now, because that one thing you want to share with others will be the thing that you can figure out how to incorporate in your business, in your workflow, in your style tomorrow.
Get more information about how to drive solutions and reset your growth mindset at reddirection.com. Thank you for joining us, and special thanks to our post-production team at The Scott Treatment.